episode of Java and Justice here at Scarrett Bennett Center, where we believe that hospitality is justice. And yes, we believe in radical hospitality. Yeah. I am Reverend Sondrea Tolbert, the executive director here at Scarrett Bennett, and have with me Reverend Kelli X, the director of Racial Justice Ministries. And today's hot topic that we wanted to kind of bring to the table to talk about probably is one of the topics that has been on everyone's mind from the last couple of weeks, but we definitely wanted to lend in on this topic today regarding really how justice prevails in the streets with those who have been sworn to serve and protect.
Wow.
And that whole notion of hospitality and how we deal with that with one with another.
Yeah.
And, you know, even in light of this incident, if you will, this one more senseless and tragic death of a young person that has once more and again died at the hands of those who've been sworn, taking an oath to serve and protect. And that whole notion of hospitality with that. You know, what are we talking about? Yes, the senseless death of our very brother, Tyre Nichols, because certainly he represents anyone. So, Reverend Kelli, what's your thoughts?
What's interesting, my initial thoughts are sadness and like, oh, okay. That's not even the right word. It is sadness. It is frustration, and it is, of course. Yeah. It's unfortunate. It is unfortunate to live in a world where those who, and I think, as you said it over, sworn to serve and protect, those who have been trained and then take an oath that they are to hold sacred, I believe, to serve and to protect, can behave in a manner that is the complete opposite of service and protection. And I believe, as I think about it, with my Scarrett lens, where, you know, we talk about hospitality as justice, service and protection are forms of hospitality.
Yes.
It's you take care of people. You make sure that they have everything that they need, and you protect them from all harm. That's the reason why we let people into our homes and we feed them, we serve them, we give them what they want, and we also make sure that nothing of harm could happen to them. And so hearing that this man, and I'm saying intentionally hearing that this young man, this 29-year-old father of a 4-year-old who loved skateboarding and was an entrepreneurial photographer with the website. So he was trying to figure out how can he take this art that he loves to be able to take care of himself and his son, that he was stopped for swerving, I say with quotes around, and pulled out and handcuffed and beaten for 3 minutes, tased, pepper sprayed, and then dying 3 days later. Wow. So many things that are coming in my mind, and it's all the opposite of hospitality, all the opposite of protection, all the opposite of serving. And it is sad to be sad again.
Sad to be sad, angry, confused, and oh my God, because your first inkling, you know, that you've been hearing about these instances have been protests, we remember George Floyd. We remember that, just a few years back, we were marching in the streets because of the knee on the neck, at the hands, at someone that did not look like the one laying there.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is different. This is different. And when I think of George Floyd, I think of it's always, for me, it's Ahmaud Arbery, it's Breonna Taylor, it's George Floyd, right? These three different things, and there are different types of policing that are happening. Ahmaud Arbery isn't killed by police officers, but by white men who are policing their neighborhood as a watch and thinking that his running in that space is not available. Should not be available to him, even though it's his neighborhood. You've got Breonna Taylor being murdered on a no-knock warrant that's going to the wrong house, associated with a man she's no longer associated with, and the warrant being illegally done, and all of these to deal with. Yet her murderers are still free, and then you've got George Floyd being stopped for a counterfeit 20 and dying, and all of these things happening at the same time. And so those protests build upon this in the midst of a global pandemic. And so it's that powder keg, and you go, oh, and we've got millions in the street. This is going to stop. Yeah. It's got to stop now. And it's not just black folks. It's not just Latinos, but white folks and they babies are in. I was at a number of protests with little children, white children, who are saying, oh, no. We see humanity in everybody, and we should do this. And then for this to happen to Tyre 3 years later, and the officers be, the majority of the officers be black men. It's also, it hurts in a different way, and it creates anger in a whole nother way. But then also to know that Tyre and Breonna share the exact same birthday, that year, day, and month, day, and year. I was like, this is way too much. It's so heavy. But the idea that black men would use their badge to harm another black man for what we don't, there's all the rumors, all the things, but the idea that you would use this sacred role, and I say sacred because to serve and to protect.
Sworn. Let's go back. Sworn to serve and protect. You get up there, you have your hand up,
and you use your sacred text to say that this is what I'm going to do. And then whether it is real vendetta or fake or made up in your head, or maybe even just a bad day and we just gonna have fun today. I'm not fully sure, but that makes me, it incenses me.
Because it's senseless. It takes senselessness to a whole nother level, that when we cannot see the humanity in someone else.
Yes.
Regardless of color. Regardless of what, we all have the same blood running through our veins. But when you cannot see another person, regardless of color, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of gender, to be another human.
Yes.
That have we been so desensitized in America or in the world that we cannot see humanity in one another, that there is blood running through your veins, there's blood running through my veins. If we cut it, it's the same color. And we still have the same concerns for our safety, regardless. And so how would you want your brother, your son,
to be treated,
your uncle, your daddy, your, sibling to be treated, and to not offer that same, since we, scare it, that same hospitality?
Correct.
To someone else. That's a whole nother level of how in the world do you think we got here? How do you think we got to this point in society where we have total disregard for one another's life.
Yeah.
To even get to the point that not just the officers being sworn to serve and protect, but you also have first responders who come on the scene. And your job is to render aid. And yet, you chose, for whatever reason, whatever conversation that was had between whoever, to not do your job.
Yeah.
Regardless of feelings, regardless of conversations, how do we get to a society that now has blatant disregard for life?
It's got me thinking as we're sitting here talking, and you would have thought I thought of it beforehand, but it really has me thinking about the expert of the law coming to Jesus, and he's trying to figure out how to inherit eternal life, and so Jesus comes back and asks him what's happening in the law, and he says what he's supposed to: love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, all the things, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And it's correct. And then it's great. And then he asks Jesus just to try to stump Jesus, who is my neighbor. And then we have that story that we commonly call the Good Samaritan, which is interesting because apparently to be a good Samaritan, just how rude that is in general. That's just rude. Like, how about a story about the Samaritan, right? But the idea that nobody at the scene thought that Tyre was their neighbor.
Right.
Nobody thought about their neighbor or could see themselves in him, because to love your neighbor as yourself, you've got to be able to see yourself in your neighbor. And that part for me is what's so harming in the justice system and in policing, that so often that our police officers are trained to fear and be afraid and to other those whom they're supposed to be protecting. It's hard to protect and to serve those whom you see as other, as less than, as dangerous, as coming to kill and destroy you. And so that part for me is difficult. And you would think that if you saw skin that looks like yours, that you would be at least be able to see yourself. But what that says is how the internalized white supremacy within this country, within policing and all of that, how that shows up, and how we have to be careful to not allow that to consume our way of being, our way of living, and to live in a way that of hospitality that is godlike.
Definitely. I mean, because when you see that now, when you see skin like yours, but then we take on, unfortunately, when the oppressed start taking on the behavior of the oppressor, then we got a problem in society that we didn't look and see to break that cycle. Because you would have thought that the protesting, that the calling for justice, the calling for outrage, the outrage of the senseless murders that have already taken place would have clicked with somebody in the clique. To say, no, brother, we're not going to do this. That we're not going to have this type of behavior. But then it has, it almost has the mentality of when you see or hear that the swiftness in the response for 5 of the 7 to swiftly be brought to some accountability
in ways that we've never seen before, quickly
to send the message that we're serious about this, but yet you are not as serious to have the two others
to be held accountable.
In the same swiftness.
Well, and the thing that's interesting, so he is beaten for minutes, handcuffed and beaten. No, that he is
Tased.
stopped.
Yeah,
he is stopped, ripped out of his car, tased, beaten, handcuffed, and pepper sprayed for minutes.
Yeah.
Yards from his parents' home.
Yeah.
And part of it is, I have to just stop here at this moment. He calls for his mother. And you can't help but think about both Eric Gardner and George Floyd as they are being murdered, calling for their mother, but also Tyre being so close to his mama's house that he could actually be calling for his mother, hoping that someone hears him, that somebody sees, hears, and stops, right? But then, and he dies on the 10th, unfortunately, in the hospital. And then on the 20th, they are fired. The 26th, the five officers, 5 black officers are fired. The 26th, they are charged with second-degree murder, and that happens the day before they release the tapes. And they do it on purpose. The chief of police says she wanted folks to know that we're taking this seriously. However, when you see the video and you see, well, wait a minute, who's this? Harpo? Who is this woman?
Who is he? Who is this, Harpo?
Trying to figure out why. Okay, we appreciate your accountability. We appreciate that. However, and this man is the one who pulls him out the car and says, I hope they beat him. Stump him?
Stomp him. Yeah, that I think the language was, I hope they stomp the,
all the things.
And then for them to proceed to do that.
Yeah, right.
Because it's almost as if he gave the command. Nope. It's almost like.
It
he
could
gave
be
the
seen,
command
or if not the
permission.
command, he definitely was like,
Co-sign.
I know what we came here to do.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna do my part in the role of the plan that maybe has been, and so this idea that it's second or first, you know better than that than I know. God, Lord, I don't have that thing. I just know evil and wrong when I see it.
And that was pure evil. I mean, it even seems as if it was planned, and if there was some premeditation. But hey, that's for another day, another time. That's for the courts to decide.
Exactly. So the part that makes it frustrating for me as a black woman who does justice work, right? Seeing Tyre be treated unjustly and unfair to the point of death. And then to see how quickly justice can happen when the people who are enacting the injustice are black. Yeah. And at the bottom of the ranking system of white supremacy. And so then it's like, oh my goodness, here we go. Like there is like,
here we go again.
I was like, I'm thankful for the justice, but I'm also kind of messed up in that this is it, and that and so still how the injustice happens even in this. And so it's not until what day was that? The 29th, the 30th? The 30th. That the white officer who pulls him out, that we get his name, and that he is like all of those things.
Yeah, then we got then you got a suspension for him and another unidentified officer. But here it is as if, was there really accountability?
Yeah. Right. And because it doesn't feel like accountability, what it feels like is a washing of hands of trying to step away and to not take their own responsibility for this unjust action that is happening. And so it becomes something, it doesn't, it taints it in a way. But what I appreciate about what Attorney Ben Crump says, so you know how to do justice.
You know how to do justice.
You know how to do this. So let us make this the standard, not the exception to the rule.
Yeah. But then it also begs the question when you say, I think it was, was it Reverend Al Sharpton that brought to bear that, hey, we fought in the streets for there to be equity in policing, for there to be trained, informed, and officers who look like and diversity. So really, do we really this whole notion of equity and inclusion and diversity, just because you're there, if you're not having any altered behavior,
then what is the purpose of your
what's the purpose of you being there? If you take on the culture.
Yes. That then you, because the thing that's interesting about it is that as police brutality, that phrase, that language is not new. That's not some 90s. That's not to 2000s. Dr. King is writing about police brutality, right? That is also being talked about in at the turn of the century, the turn of the century, in 20th century. I don't know when I'm going centuries or hundreds. Forgive me. But this is the conversation. This is constantly that the police are constantly attacking and brutalizing Black bodies throughout the existence of the police. And so when you then the thought is if we can get Black people on the police force, then we can have just policing. And that's what Dr. King marched for. That's what he fought for in the city where he was murdered for doing this thing. And so, and this then turns around. So, speaking for myself, not for Scarrett Bennett Center, it makes me now think, maybe it's not about reforming police systems, but dismantling police systems. What does abolition look like? How then do we create an actual justice center, a justice system, as opposed to a watching everybody trying to find all the wrong that people are doing, and then creating laws in order to wrong folks, and it makes me honestly think about something that I look forward to us doing next month, is like this conversation around what does prison look like, and prison abolition, and this film that is going to be amazing to come. It's just all these things, because
prison reform, criminal justice reform. How we look
how
at
do we do it? How do we live this? How do we live?
It's being that we spend more money on criminalizing people than we do educating people. Then how do we live into really truly being just?
Yes.
If our idea of maintaining a safe society and for the public good, for everybody, when we also see that everybody's not treated the same, then really, what is our justice system doing?
Correct.
As one who just came out of justice. What is our justice system really
out of the
doing?
Justice system to do justice.
Right.
Yeah.
Come out of justice system to do justice.
Correct.
Yeah, sure did. So it almost, so there's this undercurrent, or there's this philosophy of some groups that talk about that very notion in their espousing that to defund the police. That's kind of like the undercurrent of the reason that they say, hey, we got to have a better system, a different system. It's not that you don't have policing, but there needs to be a system, a different reimagining, if you will,
right?
What it means to live in a just society, in a safe society,
and to have community,
community one with another.
Yes,
and to really begin to look at one another as your neighbor.
Yes,
and to really look at one another as offering up radical hospitality. And I think, you started going down this line of thought process earlier, and I heard you say that he was only yards away from his mama's house.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say mother's house, his mama's house. And calling out for his mama. And I've heard her speak about that is her agony. of being that close
Could not
and hearing her
yeah.
and not hearing her son cry out and not being able to help. But then that also bears there were those who were close.
Yeah.
And did nothing. There were those that in the neighborhood probably peeped out the curtain and saw the lights. Went on about their business.
For whatever reason. For either not caring or being too afraid.
Or being too afraid.
All the things that could run through
they're
not wanting to end up like him.
them. Yeah. That there are so many points of intervention. And yet intervention does not happen. That another idea that came out of the last 3 years of police or dying at the hands of police was that everybody needed video cameras.
We forgot about Rodney King. There was a video then.
That was a video. Didn't help. And here we have the same thing once more and again. They know that they have the video
body cams
that they have body cams on them. They know that they're actually that are being recorded. And yet then even still go and try and falsify
reports. And to walk away trying to create a narrative as they're wearing their cameras to say that you don't actually see what you see. And can you trust police? Yes, all the things that and
so many issues.
So many pieces. And we didn't even talk about we don't have time, but about do you even once you've got the video and when you have so many videos, do we watch the video?
Oh, I mean, how many times do we need to watch, hear, rehearse watching somebody die?
Right.
Or is it that we see it so much on television? On movies. That the violence that we're so inundated with then becomes, oh, another person died. So at what point do we bring back into society that we are all God's creation?
Yeah, for myself, I didn't watch it. I've talked to people who have. I have a good friend who said he was like, I couldn't watch the body cam. He's like, also it's hard and all of that because he didn't want to hear it.
Hearing, even if you watch it.
Watching the whatever that the just so happened to be the camera above. And even that, he was like, I can't. It's too much. He's like, he didn't want to hear the punches. He didn't want to hear the talking, but needed to. And going back and forth, there's a need. Sometimes the humanity allows us to bear witness on humanity, right?
Yeah.
To be able to see that this is what is happening. But then you have to also be able to guard one's own humanity and the watching.
And it's okay.
And it's a real
self-care is okay. I can't watch it.
Right.
You know, really.
And so we choose and we have to be careful about when we are choosing safety over bravery. Kind of back to what you were talking about with those around stepping out. I know we always like safe space, but we got to be brave, and that means sometimes being uncomfortable moving into spaces that are dangerous. But being able to determine, sometimes I'm being brave by not watching because I have a son, or I just have humanity, and I know that what happened to Tyre also happened to Brianna and Sandra and Tatiana. Like we can run down a list of women as well. So it's not that, and being aware that sometimes are not watching. Are we doing that to numb ourselves and to not learn and to
not learn?
So it's all a delicate balance. It's all a delicate balance.
Oh my. And so I guess we were about out of time, but so that means like another topic of really probably maybe even having some guests on to talk about some of these issues, particularly with, being mothers and that bearing the burden of so many of your child being lost in this way.
Yeah.
and the grief, and walking and with that grief, and walking with the accountability, and still trying to honor your child's memory, your child's life,
Right.
because they were more than them 3 minutes,
Way more than that.
way more than that.
Which is why I appreciate, at least even on the Wikipedia, it's you're gonna go and it's gonna say how old he was, what he loved to do, his life. Can we talk about his life more than we talk about his death? But let's not forget how he died, because we want to make sure no one else dies that way. But we also have to remember how he lived as well.
And looking at how he looked at life through the lenses of his photography.
Yeah.
That's
good.
That's his life. How he looked at life, how he lived life through the lens of his photography. Another interesting hot topic.
Yeah.
Here on Java and Justice, where we have our own blend of justice and coffee, Java and Justice coffee. But these are the things that we ponder and we take with, but that we not only must ponder, but we also must have some participation, some performance, along with our prayers.
Yeah, that we pray with our hands and our feet, and our mouths, and
sometimes
and our
fingers,
and with with our votes, and we show up.
And so that at some point, these instances will be a faint memory.
Yes.
Hopefully
that
they will not happen, that we will remember them as a catalyst for change, but not as the norm.
Correct.
So that fuels us to make changes in legislation, that to hold people accountable. And so hopefully we'll be able to see the change that we seek by being a part of that change.
Yes.
Another hot topic on Java and Justice here at Scarrett Bennett Center with Reverend Kelli X, the Director of Racial Justice Ministries, and Reverend Sondrea Tolbert, the Executive Director here at Scarrett Bennett Center. Please check us out at scarrettbennett.org for more of the offerings that we have here. We have lunch, we have community dinners, Sunday meal dinner on the fourth Sundays, and Vespers every Sunday. But you really don't want to miss any of the offerings that are happening here at Scarrett. So make sure you pay attention to our website, our social media, and come experience the great things that are happening right here at Scarrett. This has been Java and Justice, where we most certainly believe right here at Scarrett Bennett Center that hospitality is justice. Join us and be a co-creator of this justice.
Yes.